Why is autoimmunity so common today? Welcome back to Sipping on Wellness. Whether you're out for a walk, driving down the road, or enjoying a quiet moment with your favorite drink, I'm glad you're here. I want to start today with an observation. Maybe you've noticed it too. It seems like more and more people are dealing with health challenges than ever before. A friend is diagnosed with Hashimoto's. A family member is managing rheumatoid arthritis. A coworker is navigating lupus. Someone else is struggling with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, or another autoimmune condition. Even if you don't have an autoimmune condition yourself, chances are you know someone who does. Found myself wondering about why that is. Was this always happening and we just didn't recognize it? Are we simply better at diagnosing these conditions? Or is something actually changing? Because when you step back and look at the bigger picture, it does seem like more people are struggling with chronic health issues than previous generations, not just autoimmune conditions, fatigue, digestive problems, hormone balances, metabolic concerns, chronic inflammation. The list seems to keep growing. Now, before we go any further, I want to be clear about something. Today's episode isn't about finding one cause. In fact, one of the biggest lessons I've learned in health is that most complex problems rarely have simple explanations. But I do think it's worth asking the question, why does it feel like autoimmunity is becoming so common? And what might that reveal about the way we think about health in general? Before we dive in, a quick reminder, I'm not your doctor, and this podcast isn't intended to diagnose, treat, or replace individualized medical care. My goal is to share research, education, and practical insights to help you better understand your health and ask more informed questions. As always, before making any changes to your nutrition, supplements, medications, or healthcare plan, please consult with a qualified healthcare provider or practitioner who knows your individual situation. Today, I want to explore what researchers are seeing, what may be contributing to the rise in autoimmune conditions, and perhaps most importantly, how can we begin thinking about these conditions through a broader lens? One of the first questions that comes up when we talk about autoimmunity is whether these conditions are actually becoming more common. And honestly, that's a fair question. Part of the answer is probably that we're better at recognizing them, partially. We, of course, have more testing available, and there's greater awareness among healthcare providers. That's all true. People are talking about these conditions more openly than they did 20 or 30 years ago. In some cases, conditions that may have gone undiagnosed in the past are now being identified much earlier, and that's all a good thing. But most researchers would tell us that increased awareness doesn't appear to explain the entire story. Many autoimmune conditions have increased significantly over the past several decades, and while no one can point to a single reason why, it's led many researchers and clinicians to start asking a bigger question: what has changed about the world we're living in? Because when we think about the immune system, it's important to remember that it doesn't operate in isolation. It's constantly responding to information, to the food we eat, the air we breathe, the stress we experience, the infections we're exposed to, the quality of our sleep, and the nutrients available to support normal immune function, the health of our digestive system. All of these things influence the environment in which the immune system operates. And if the environment changes, it makes sense that the way the body responds might change as well. Now, this is where many conversations become overly simplistic. People want one cause. They want one villain, one thing to blame. But health rarely works that way, especially when we're talking about something as complex as the immune system. The more I've studied health, the more I've realized that most chronic conditions aren't usually the result of one thing. They're often the result of many factors interacting over time, which means the better question may not be what caused this. The better question may be what factors could be contributing to the bigger picture. And that's where I think this conversation becomes really interesting. I think one of the reasons autoimmune conditions can be so frustrating is that we naturally want a simple explanation. One thing we can point to and say, that's it, that's the reason. In fact, I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is assuming there has to be one cause. And while any of the things that we just mentioned may play a role, health is usually much more interconnected than that. I often think of it like a bucket. Imagine your body carrying a bucket throughout your life. Over time, things get added to it. There's some stress, you have some poor sleep, you have some nutrient deficiencies, you have some past infections, and then you add environmental exposures or digestive issues. But don't forget blood sugar imbalances, hormonal changes. Oh, and those life events. None of those things automatically cause autoimmunity, but each one may add a little more to the overall load the body is carrying. And eventually, for some people, the bucket starts getting full. Now, here's where I think this becomes important. Two people can experience the exact same stressor and have very different outcomes. One person develops symptoms, the other doesn't. One person recovers quickly, the other struggles for years, which tells us that the trigger itself isn't always the whole story. The bigger question may be what was already in the bucket, because when we focus only on the last thing that happened, we can miss that bigger picture. The stressful year, the years of poor sleep, the unresolved digestive issues, the nutrient deficiencies, that cumulative burden that may have been building long before symptoms appeared. And I think that's one of the reasons autoimmune conditions can feel so confusing. Symptoms often show up at the end of a process that may have been developing for years, which means the goal isn't necessarily to find one thing to blame. The goal is to become curious, to step back and ask what factors might be contributing to the overall picture. Because once we start asking that question, we often begin seeing connections we might have otherwise missed. Whenever someone asks me where to start, my answer is usually the same. I start by getting curious, not about one symptom, not about one lab result, about the bigger picture. Because if we've learned anything from this conversation so far, it's that health is rarely about one thing. It's usually about understanding the patterns. So if someone came to me wondering why they were struggling with chronic symptoms, autoimmunity, inflammation, or simply not feeling like themselves, here are a few areas I'd want to explore. The first is digestive health. Not because I believe every health issue starts in the gut, but because the digestive system plays such an important role in nutrient absorption, immune function, and inflammation. I'd want to know, how is digestion? Are there symptoms like bloating, reflux, constipation, diarrhea, or food sensitivities? Has there been a history of frequent antibiotics, infections, or digestive issues? The second area is stress. And when I say stress, I'm not just talking about feeling busy. I'm talking about the cumulative load someone has been carrying. What has life looked like over the last few years, over the last few months? Have there been major life changes? Have there been losses, caregiving responsibilities, work stress? Because the body experiences all of those things as inputs, and those inputs matter. The third area I'd look at is sleep. Not because sleep solves everything, but because it's difficult for the body to repair, recover, and regulate itself when sleep is consistently disrupted. I often tell clients that sleep isn't just rest. It's one of the primary times the body does its maintenance work. Then the fourth area is nutrient status. Things like vitamin D, iron, B12, magnesium, and omega-3 fats play important roles throughout the body. When those areas are depleted, the body may not function the way it was designed to. And finally, I'd want to understand blood sugar regulation, because blood sugar isn't just about diabetes. Stable blood sugar influences energy, hormones, inflammation, cravings, and metabolic health. Again, none of these things are automatically explain autoimmunity, and none of them are guaranteed to be the answer, but they often provide valuable clues. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts I'd love people to make. Instead of looking for one cause, start looking for patterns, because sometimes the clues are there. We just haven't been looking at them together. When I was thinking about putting this episode together, I kept coming back to something we see throughout Scripture. We see people who only understand part of the story. They can see what's happening right in front of them, but they can't see everything God is doing behind the scenes. I think many of us can relate to that when it comes to our health. We see the symptom, we feel the frustration, we experience the fatigue and the pain, the uncertainty, or the questions that come with not feeling like ourselves. But we don't always see the bigger picture. We don't see everything that may have contributed to where we are today. And we certainly don't see everything that may be happening beneath the surface as healing and restoration unfold over time. One of the passages that comes to mind is Psalm 139. David writes, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me." What I love about that verse is the reminder that God knows us completely, not partially, not based on a lab result, not based on a diagnosis or a symptom, but completely. He understands every system, every cell, every thought, every worry, and every part of our story. And while that doesn't answer every question we may have, I think it offers something just as valuable: perspective. Because when we're dealing with something complex, it's easy to become focused on the one thing that's bothering us most, that symptom or diagnosis, the uncertainty. But God sees the whole picture. He sees what we can see and what we cannot, the past, the present, and the future. That's where comfort in remembering that we don't have to have every answer in order to trust Him. We don't have to understand every piece of the puzzle before taking the next step. Sometimes faith looks like continuing to move forward, even when we don't fully understand what God is doing. And sometimes wisdom looks like acknowledging that there may be more to the story than we can currently see. Just as health is often more interconnected than we realize, life is often more interconnected than we realize as well. And thankfully, the God who created us understands the entire picture, even when we're only looking at one piece at a time. As we wrap up today's conversation, I want to leave you with one simple thought. Maybe the goal isn't finding the one thing that's causing every symptom. Maybe the goal is learning to see the bigger picture, because health is rarely as simple as we'd like it to be. It's influenced by our environment, our habits, our sleep, our stress, our nutrition, our relationships, our past experiences, and so much more. And while that complexity can feel overwhelming at times, it can also be encouraging. Why? Because it reminds us that there are often multiple places where healing, support, and progress can begin. You don't have to solve everything at once. You don't have to have every answer, and you don't have to figure it all out today. Sometimes the next step is simply getting curious, paying attention, looking for patterns, and asking better questions. If today's conversation resonated with you, I've linked my free What I'd Start With guides in the show notes. Whether you're exploring hormone concerns, gut health issues, low energy, or simply trying to understand where to begin, these guides can help you think through the foundations before jumping into advanced testing and protocols. You'll also find my full script storefront where I share the supplement brands and products I personally trust and recommend. And if you take one thing away from today's episode, let it be this. Instead of looking for one cause, start looking for patterns, because sometimes the clues are there. We just haven't been looking at them together. So until next time, friend, stay nourished, stay curious, and choose wellness one thoughtful step at a time.